Imagine planting a seed. Will it grow? That will depend on the soil. A healthy seed placed on dry concrete will never become a tree. But that very same seed, when it is planted in rich, fertile soil, it will grow quickly and it will give fruits sooner. Cancer works in a similar way, unfortunately. Many people think that cancer is only about abnormal cells. But modern science has discovered something that is very remarkable. Cancer does not grow alone. It grows in a neighborhood. So these cells do not just grow in isolation, there is the surrounding environment. And sometimes our own bodies accidentally create the perfect neighborhood for the cancer cell growth. Not because we wanted to, not because we did something wrong, but because chronic inflammation quietly changes the environment around cells. When we talk about inflammation, we are talking about the process that the body triggers to defend itself from invading microorganisms. This is supposed to be an acute meaning short time. So what happens when you have occurred an infection, like for example an infection, the body will bring the defense mechanism cell into the place that is affected. This will cause pain, it will cause swelling, it will cause the temperature to rise, and it causes swelling. So those are the four hallmarks of inflammation. The problem comes when we are talking about chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is this process that never stops. It is continuously in action. So in this video, we are going to explore one of the exciting discoveries in modern cancer biology. And this is the tumor microenvironment, that surrounding of the tumor. So we learn and share why chronic inflammation matters, how obesity, the fatty liver, the infections, smoking, and even poor metabolic health influence cancer risk, and most importantly, what you can do today to create a healthier environment inside your body. I am Dr. Joshua Diritu. I am a family physician. I have interest in cancer prevention and treatment and public health. I also do lifestyle medicine coaching to help people manage their conditions and their diseases, basically most of the times with lifestyle changes. So let's begin our discussion. Your body, as a matter of fact, is consistently and constantly repairing itself. Every day, your body performs millions and millions of tiny repairs. A paper cut, a scrapped knee, a viral infection, a muscle strain after exercise. Each injury starts with inflammation, and I have said what inflammation is. So, when you think about inflammation, it sounds very scary. But the truth is, this is what your body needs because it needs to defend itself. So, inflammation is not the enemy. In fact, you cannot survive without inflammation, without your body defending itself against infection. Then means that bacteria will overcome you, viruses will overcome you. If you get cut, the cut will not heal. So your inflammation is your body's emergency response when it is under attack. And this brings immune cells, as I've explained, and these remove the damaged tissue. They kill the invading microorganism, and the healing process starts to happen. So this is something that is very important to your body. And once the repair process is complete, then that process of inflammation just switches off. So it is not a continuous process. The tissue heals and everything returns to normal. And the system has a good, beautifully organized control system. Now, this is where problems begin. When this fire never stops burning, when that inflammation does not stop. So imagine a small kitchen fire. You put it out immediately, very little damage will happen. But if the fire continues burning slowly, day after day, week after year, week after week, year after year, eventually everything around that fire will become damaged. It will burn what was supposed to be burned and burn everything else that it comes into contact with. That is what chronic inflammation does. Instead of lasting a few days, it quietly continues for years. And many things can cause this. What are the things that trigger this persistent inflammation? One is obesity. That belly fat that has accumulated over time is not just quiet docile fat. It produces something we call cytokines, which are burning cells or immune cells that cause persistent inflammation. When we have fatty liver disease, again, this is driven again by, most of the times, alcohol is one of the major causes of fatty liver diseases. Obesity is another thing. Insulin resistance, another cause of fatty liver. Then things like smoking, long-term infection like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, Helicobacter pylori infection, what many people know as H. pylori infection. We have infection with the human papilloma virus in the cervix or in the genital areas that can cause persistent inflammation. HIV infection, air pollution, poor sleep, physical inactivity. Just sitting causes that inflammatory process to continue. And this has been shown to be the case. Then persistent metabolic disease. As you know, metabolic dysfunction drives insulin resistance. Insulin resistance develops, brings about visceral fat accumulation. So each one of these creates more amounts of ongoing tissue injury that is never ending. And this is not going to make you feel sick immediately, but enough slowly to change the environment around your cells. So scientists sometimes call these the wounds that do not heal, but they are persistently there. So that simple sentence explains decades of cancer research. So let's look at this tumor microenvironment. So let's enter into the neighborhood around a future tumor. So you can imagine a house and around it are roads, neighbors, the police, electricity, water pipes, communication systems. The house cannot survive alone. Cancer works the same way. It does not survive on its own. It works on the surroundings. So around every cancer cell is a community called the tumor microenvironment. Environment is the surrounding, micro is that where the cancer cell is, that neighborhood. And this neighborhood contains the blood vessels. It contains the immune cells, the defense mechanism of your bodies. The cells we call fibroblasts that help tissue multiply. And then we have the support cells, the cellular matrix that hold the cells together, then the connective tissue, then the chemical messengers, and even the tiny proteins that are in that environment. Then we have even some bacteria and microorganisms in that neighborhood. Normally, the neighborhood protects the healthy tissue. That's what they're supposed to do. But during chronic inflammation, this unending burning, the behavior of the micro or environment can change. Instead of stopping the abdominal cells multiplying, Some begin to help the abnormal cells survive. The immune cells release chemicals that signal to the abnormal cells called cytokine. And you may have heard of some of these, like interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 1 beta. And these are the text messages between cells, how cells communicate to each other. And when they stay switched on for long, then the message becomes harmful. More than becoming your defense mechanism, some of these messages now start supporting the abnormal cells. So instead of saying heal the tissue, they begin saying keep growing, keep surviving, don't stop dividing. And that's where the problem comes. So these switches, they stay stuck on. And when they stay stuck on, that's where problems begin. So inside every cell, there are master switches that help you to switch off. So two of the most important are called the nuclear factor kappa beta B, and we have the start 3. These are messenger systems that cells communicate. Don't worry about remembering the names. Sometimes even myself struggle to remember them, but remember what they do. Normally, these switches turn on briefly during healing. So they turn on, then they turn off. That is the normal inflammatory response. They cause interaction when there is need to heal, when there is need to be fed. But when there is chronic inflammation, they keep the on button on again and again and again. And now the cells that are supposed to be switched off, if they are abnormal, they are encouraged to survive. They are encouraged to multiply. And they are encouraged to resist death. Meanwhile, reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen species, often called the free radicals, damage your DNA. I have talked about this in one of the previous videos about what uh, free radicals do to your body. And I've talked of how you can help your body to switch on, to switch off some of these free radicals and neutralize them so that they do not get into your DNA and damage it. You can check in the what it means to have free radicals in your body. So the immune system quickly removes the abnormal cells, but the chronic inflammation changes the immune behavior. And some of the cells become exhausted. And once they become exhausted, others also get suppressed. So some are reprogrammed to support the tumor growth rather than destroy it. When we are talking about the tumor, we are talking about the abnormal cells. So this immune system, which is supposed to be the body defense mechanism, which is supposed to stop abnormal multiplication, when this chronic inflammation persists, some of these cells change their behavior, some of the communication mechanisms, they break down and they start giving the wrong signals. So cancer does not just simply escape the immune system, it changes the neighborhood until the immune system changes and it has to struggle to recognize the threat. Now, how does the microenvironment build an environment that supports the cancer cells? As the tumor grows, it begins remodeling its surroundings. So new blood vessels grow where the cells are multiplying. So this helps to bring more nutrients to the growing and multiplying cells. This process of more blood vessels developing is called angiogenesis. And this means more oxygen to the abnormally multiplying cells. It means more nutrients. It means more growth. So the extracellular matrix, the scaffolding around the cell, is broken down and rebuilt. So what I mean is, once these cells start multiplying, they are placed in cell multiplication that are not supposed to be broken down. But when these cells start multiplying abnormally, they break down the barriers. The cells are attached together. But when these abnormal processes happen, these abnormal cells, they break what is joining the cells together, what is preventing these cells getting into the bloodstream, and they fight themselves into the bloodstream. And that way, they fight themselves into the circulation. And that's even how metastasis happens. Metastasis is the cancer cells moving from where they started to another site. So the cancer cells are also associated with the cells we call fibroblasts, which help reshape the environment. So some immune cells produce enzymes that allows the cancer cells to invade the nearby tissues, as I've said, and others release growth factors that encourage further expansion. The cancer moves away. So the neighborhood has changed completely. It is supporting now the cancer, and it is not protecting the healthy tissues that is supposed to protect. So it's now supporting the abnormal cells. So modern cancer treatments are increasingly targeting these cancer cells themselves, but also these supportive neighborhoods. And that's why we are calling the immunological methods of treating cancer. And researchers have started developing therapies that block that process of vessel formation, that reactivation of the immune system, and the interruption of that inflammatory signaling pathway, so that these abnormal cells are not supported to grow. So what are the things that increase the risk of this microenvironment of the abnormal cells behaving in this abnormal way? This will help us understand why some of the chronic conditions are cancer risks. When you talk about long-standing conditions like ulcerative colitis or becoming a colorectal cancer risk, or hepatitis B or C, increasing the liver cancer risk, uh, or persistent infection with Helicobacter pylori infection, increasing the stomach cancer risk. So this is what happens. We also have other conditions like metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease, what was previously known as NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it increases the risk of liver cancer, and especially when this chronic inflammation is persistently there. So as I said, obesity creates chronic inflammation in the fat tissue, and this produces inflammatory cytokines, and these alter the hormones that promote several cancers. So also, smoking exposes tissues to toxin that cause repeated injury and inflammation, and that's how smoking causes cancer. So the common thread is not just simply damage. It is damage that never heals. It is continuous. And that's what obesity does. That's what some infection does. That's what pollution in the environment does. That's why some infection alter your microenvironment and allow the multiplication of abnormal cells. Now you understand. Now you can know how to defend yourself. So how can you change this neighborhood? And this is the most important part of this discussion. So read on so that you know that you can be able to defend yourself. So this story is not hopelessness. In fact, it is empowering because you have the power to change all these things. Because unlike your genes, many drivers of chronic inflammation are modifiable. Yes, they are when you decide. And here are some of the powerful ways that you can change that microenvironment. One, maintain a healthy weight, especially reduce the abdominal fat. Visceral fat is actively producing inflammatory chemicals. If you want to know how much visceral fat you have, then measure your abdominal circumference or your waist circumference. It is measured around your navel area. For men, it should be not more than 90 centimeters. For ladies, not more than 80 centimeters. Then move daily. Exercise lowers inflammatory markers. It improves your immune function. It improves your insulin sensitivity. And even a brisk walk of 30 minutes will make a difference. Not even that, when you walk for 20 minutes after your biggest meal, you make a difference in your metabolism and even in the way that your body manages and handles sugar. And even when you move, you also help your muscles to do a better job in handling the glucose in your blood. Then eat anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. What is the anti-inflammatory dietary pattern? Fill your plate with vegetables. So the story says, move every day, eat anti-inflammatory patternary diet, anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. What is anti-inflammatory dietary pattern? Fill your plate with vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grains, nuts, seeds, healthy fats like olive oil, fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids. These foods, they provide fiber, antioxidants, photochemicals that support the healthy immune function. And that's why foods work better than even the supplements, because it's a whole library of nutrients. Then sleep 7 to 9 hours if you are 18 years and above. For children, it's 9 to 12 hours. Poor sleep increases the inflammatory signaling, and good sleep helps regulate the immune response. Don't smoke. Smoking causes persistent tissue injury throughout the body. So stopping smoking is one of the things that you can do to help your body fight cancer and prevent this immune reactivity consistently. Then limit your alcohol intake. As I said, one of the biggest causes of the inflammatory responses is the effect of excess fat in the liver. One of the major causes of excess fat in the liver is alcohol plus excess use of the sugary added drinks, the fruit juices, the sodas, all these beverages that are sugar added. Then treat chronic infection and prevent the ones that you can. So if you have chronic hepatitis, inflammatory bowel disease, or you have persistent acid reflux or infection with H. pylori bacteria, then if you have abnormal bleeding or abnormal weight loss or symptoms that do not improve, seek medical care promptly. Early treatment can prevent long-term tissue damage. You are not meant to be sick. You are not meant to be having these chronic burning processes continuing persistently. You are meant to live a healthy, enjoyable life, and your lifestyle and your habits are your medicines. So cancer is not only abnormal cells, it is about the environment that surrounds these abnormal cells. The encouraging news is that you can influence that environment long before the cancer develops by every healthy move, every walk, every good night's sleep, simple things, every effort that you put to improve your metabolic health, every decision to stop smoking. These choices, they help create a healthier neighborhood inside your body. You don't have to be perfect, and I'm not asking you to be perfect. You simply need to start moving in the right direction, one step at a time, but consistently. If this video has helped you understand cancer in a new way, please share it with someone you care about. Together, we can replace fear with knowledge, because knowledge leads to action and action saves life. Remember that you do not fail to take action because of lack of willpower. Willpower does not last. Motivation does not last. What you need is to create a system. And the first thing is to act, and act with speed. Because it is only in action that a difference comes in. It is only in action that you protect yourself. So decide one thing. that you can get and from this video, and do it immediately. And if you find it helpful, share it with someone who has been sitting for too long, who has been having excess weight, and you feel that he can do something to help get his weight in the right direction. I'm Dr. Joshua Delito. Stay healthy, stay curious, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. May God bless you.